first thing we want to look at is just an imported theme. Now you'll notice with the presentation that I made, there was a theme that I used throughout the whole thing that actually it ties everything together. I am not a graphic designer, so I can't do all of that. I just cheat and I use things that are readily available to me. So the tool that I use when it comes to the presentations, making them look interesting, is a website called Slides Go. Right? I've pasted the link in the chat as well. Please don't all of you click on it at once and disappear from my presentation. So what Slides Go does essentially is you can search here for different templates for slides that you like. So let's say, for example, I like this elementary school weekly planner. These are trending searches. So there's a latest theme. So in other words, we want to use the elementary level book planner. This looks nice. Looks like a nice theme for a Google Slides presentation. So if I click on it, it opens up all of this, and I don't know why necessarily. All of this is free, which is wonderful. You just need to give them credit for this, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. Now, here it shows me all the things that have been built into this template already. These are all slides that have been built into it. I think they say there are 52 different slides that have been built into this by default, so you can use this entire thing. Now, it's as simple as clicking on Use a Google Slides theme. If you click on that, and please note, you can also download it as a PowerPoint template if you want to use PowerPoint rather than using slides. But some of the tools, yes, Ricky, it is free, amazingly enough. Right, so if I click on it, it takes you to this screen that asks you, would you like to make a copy? You just click Make a Copy. And what it will do is it literally makes a copy of the entire of the entire template. So there are different ways that you can go about it, because if you want to, now I've made this copy. Here it is loaded into my the whole thing. It is a very, very, very long slide. There are 52 slides in total. So one way that you can do it, what I quite like doing, I don't think it's quite 52. One thing that I like doing with this is I like finding a specific one that works quite nicely for me. This looks like a pretty nice template, and I'll end up making copies of this one and delete the slides, the different ones that I don't want. So this one is really quite heavy in terms of how many different things it's got in it. So you don't always need to use all of it, but there you've got a copy of it. Now, what also works quite nicely, what I like doing with this, is what it does, it just copies it to your Google Drive folder, just your plain My Drive folder by default, which I personally, I don't like leaving anything in there. I want to organize my content. So what I tend to do is just click on this icon and then just move it to a template. So I've got a folder that's been set up. It calls itself Slides Templates. It should not say templates, but it was a typo I made a long time ago. And then all that I can do, just to make sure that I know what's going on here, I'll just call this one template. Right, so there I've got my template. I have it. I can work on this template if I want, or I can now just close it because I've already made my copy. So if I've got this one now and I want to change the theme of the whole thing, I just click on Theme and I say Import Theme, and it'll go through all my presentations that I have. Obviously, first it'll first show me the ones that I've edited most recently, which will be this one. And then I simply say Select Import Theme, and I can just import the theme like that, and there we go. Now I'll replace the slides that I have with this theme. Now, please note, sometimes it'll replace everything very effectively. As you can see over here, it actually works quite nicely for what I want. And then all that I do when I want to add additional pages, you'll see with the drop down, it'll show me all the different types of pages that I can insert. And simple as that, I can create a theme that runs throughout my entire presentation. So I can use this, for example, if I want to change my index. Let's see this index that I've got over here. If I right click on this, I can say apply layout. I'd actually rather, because this is my index, I'm going to use this layout instead. And there I've got my index, and I can just move my things around a little bit to make sure it all works nicely in there. So that's the first little thing that we can do to add a theme to our presentation. Right. The next thing I want to show you that I think just makes life a lot easier is using add-ons. Now, the add-ons, the two specific add-ons that I want to show you today are the add-ons called Flat Icon and Unsplash. These are two really, really useful little tools that you can use to just add graphics very quickly and easily. Now, obviously, if you want to, you can search images by searching the web as well. This is also built into Slides, which is a very useful little tool to have. The only thing with this that you need to keep in mind is the images that you're going to find here will be licensed. But if you're going to open up a new tab and search Google for images, the things that you'll find on there are not necessarily things that you can use freely. Now, I know a lot of teachers end up using them, but technically we want to start moving to a more responsible digital citizenship, so where we don't use these things that we're not supposed to use. And on the other hand, I really would prefer never to see teachers use anything that still has those watermarks or photos and things like that in there. So you can avoid that very easily by using these tools. Now, to install an add-on, it's simple as by clicking on add-ons, get add-ons, and then it'll take you to the page where you can navigate the different add-ons that you can add. And it'll start with some of the most popular ones. Now, the different add-ons that we're going to use, we're going to be looking at today, we will get to PEREC eventually. And then some of the other add-ons that we want to look at today is the first one is called Flat Icon. Right, so Flat Icon is the one that we'll be using. Again, I'll type all of these things in the chat a little bit later. Flat Icon, and then Unsplash is the other one. So there we go. So now if you haven't got one of these things installed, it's a simple fact of clicking on the thing where mine says uninstall, yours will say install. Right, now what these different tools actually do, so if I want to now add an image to one of my pages, we're going to get back to this index page a little bit later, because if you remember correctly, we said first we build, then we link. So page one, add some text, use some icons from Flat Icon to add some value here. So what I decided we're going to use as an example, we're going to just have a very quick outline of, right, there's William Shakespeare. Just some basic information about William Shakespeare. Now, if you're going to paste information in here, please take note of just a quick little trick with pasting. If you say Control-Shift-V, you're going to end up pasting with the format of the theme already applied. If you just press Control-V, it won't give you that formatting. Control-Shift-V will give you the formatting, but it will obviously remove the bullets, which I'm quite happy with in this instance. So on this page, while it would probably be more appropriate to insert an image of Shakespeare, I don't want to use an image of Shakespeare. That's too obvious. I want to use Flat Icon to add some icons to what I'm doing. So when I want to use icons, I'll click on add-ons, icons for slides and docs, and start. Because this is an add-on, all these add-ons will appear in a panel here to the right of the thing. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. Now, one thing with Flat Icon, it's going to be a little bit tricky to illustrate for you, but it works a lot better if you sign in, right? So in other words, if you don't just open it up, but actually log in using a Google account. This can be as if your school has a Google tenant, you can use your school Google account as well. So over here, you'll see my face because I've logged in already. If you don't log in, it limits the number of images you can use. I remember when I used it the first time, I thought, oh, this tool is great, but now I can't use more images. And then I logged in, and then I could just keep on using images indefinitely. So logging in is definitely quite useful to do. And then we just simply search for images. Now, if I'm going to look for plays, I'm obviously not going to find something that's going to work for me. I want to just search for something like poetry. Okay, so if we search for poetry, it'll give me a few icons that seem quite appropriate for poetry. Please note, some of them have little crowns or stars. I don't know exactly what they want to call that. which means it is a paid one. So that one will not be free. But if you look closely, you'll see there's a ton of them that are actually quite free. Sometimes the best ones are actually free and not the ones that you paid that are paid for. Now, I'm not going to show you this necessarily, but Flat Icon has a website as well. The website gives a few more features. For example, let's say we really like which one seems appropriate? This seems quite appropriate. Right, we really like this one. Shakespeare loved writing love poetry as well. Now, the one thing that this one has, it's got the very thick outlines. If I go onto Flat Icon's website itself, then I can probably find the same icon and it'll give me different options of this icon. So I can then I can remove the lines if I don't like the lines. But in this instance, I think I'm perfectly happy with it. When you insert it, you've got different sizes that you can insert it. So you can insert a larger image or a small image, which is great because you're not really ever going to need anything bigger than 512 pixels for a slide. So you won't end up with weird pixelated, funny things like that. And now we just go simply insert, and there we go. Now we've got our image. It's as simple as that. There it is. Now, what's quite nice about using this is you can get the continuity going, because if I scroll down, it gives me more from the literature pack, because this icon comes from a specific pack of icons, set of icons, and you will find more icons that are in line with that. So if I wanted to add more than one thing here, so we want to just add this little book as well, insert. We said we won't be able to have Shakespeare in there, but we actually have a little image there of kind of Shakespeare, I suppose. Right. So what's nice is, as you can see, I've actually added some continuity in my thing, because I've used a bunch of icons that look the same, that actually work together quite well. So this is a nice way of just adding a little bit of value to, if you want to add something to your presentation, then you want to make sure that it all kind of works together. Now, another quick little trick that I'll show you that's not really part of the presentation, but it's also quite useful. If we select all of them together and we resize them, they'll end up, okay, that's not doing that one correctly. If you hold shift, then it's going to maintain the aspect ratio and it won't end up stretching if you're going to resize them. So there we go. And also, I quite like the fact that Google Slides automatically draws your little lines and things like that, so that you can make sure that your things are lining up correctly. Okay, they are a little bit weird because they do technically line up correctly, but it seems a bit off because the pen and the book. But anyway, so there we've got our flat icon images added to the page. I hope you're paying careful attention, because I'm going to give you the link to the template a little bit later so that you can start doing this as well. Now, the next one is even easier, using Unsplash. So it's essentially the same principle. The difference between Unsplash and Flat Icon is Unsplash uses photos. Again, royalty free, so you can use these images without any hassle. So if we're going to search Unsplash photos, now please note, if I'm going to search for Shakespeare, it won't give me anything, because what it does, it gives you generic stock images, essentially, that you can use. Beautiful photos or beautiful scenery, etc., etc. So depending on what you want to use it for, sometimes this can add a lot of value to a presentation, a big striking image to really grab someone's attention. So we're just going to look for poetry again, and we'll find a few images here of poetry that we can use however we want, whichever one we want to use. So, or we can search, for example, we can search for literature. Now, something about this that I, again, quite like is the fact that I don't need to go and I don't need to even break out of the presentation. I am still in the same area designing and developing my slide. I don't need to go and open a bunch of new tabs. It's just very quick and easy to do this. So this one, well, this looks like quite a nice image. If I click on it, by default, what it does is it'll insert an image that stretches across the entire screen, which if you want to, you can then just right click and then we send it to the order send to back. It becomes our background. Or if we want to, we can just resize it to a more appropriate size that works for us. Right, and then we're just going to quickly Format options, I don't know if you've necessarily played around with this. Format options gives you a couple of nice things. One of the key things, obviously, is the ability to add a drop shadow. Okay, mine's default drop shadow is set to something a little bit silly, so it doesn't really give me much of a drop shadow. Yeah, there we go. There's a bit of a better drop shadow. Right, so again, very useful because it's a free image that you're using without having to worry about royalties and without having any hassle to insert it. One little thing that I will tell you, be careful of Unsplash, or not be careful of it, but what sometimes is a little bit annoying in my opinion, is images that are inserted are automatically inserted with a border. So this is something that bugs me because the border color looks a bit funny. Just so that I can show you in a larger image, this is the border color that they've selected. You can obviously just remove that border quite easily. So there we've removed our border. Little trick that I want to show you. And this one is a little bit more of it requires a little bit more legwork than some of the others. But it is a very, very useful tool to be able to use if you're using it effectively. Now, unfortunately, Google Slides doesn't have a tool that has been built into do sound recording. So you have to do a little bit more manual work in terms of adding a sound clip. One of the things that is nice about how they do it, what I quite like, that's different about how other presentation tools use the sound recording, is it doesn't actually embed it into the presentation itself. It adds an external file. What the advantage of that is, if you are sending your content to learners that do not have a ton of data that they can use to access it, they can actually open up the presentation and choose not to play the audio file, and it won't use their data. So it becomes an additional tool, an additional resource to the tool that you're sending out. So in other words, let's say for argument's sake, on this page 2 that I've got here, I've got an image that I've inserted, but in order to understand the image, I could have added text, which I'm not going to now. I'm now only going to add a sound clip. Now, again, as I said, adding the sound clip is a little bit more tricky to do. What I use for the sound clip is I've got an extension that I've installed called Chrome Audio Capture. Now, I'm going to give you the link to this Chrome Audio Capture so that you can also add this Chrome Audio Capture to your Google Chrome. If you haven't used extensions yet, then this will be a good exercise to learn all about extensions as well. But essentially what Chrome Audio Capture does, what's quite nice about it, is if I click on this little record button, it'll open up it just opens up this Chrome Audio Capture, and it says now I can start capturing. Control-Shift-S is the key to start capturing on the current tab. So now I'm going to hit Control-S, and it is now recording my audio. Now, please note, as unfortunately is the case with many other things, because there's actually quite a lot of other audio capture tools out there, they all have some form of payment that is required. This one also has, but it gives you 20 minutes, which I think really you should be able to explain anything in 20 minutes. The idea behind this is to create multiple short little audio clips per slide, not one long narrated entire video. As some, I know what we've also discussed in the past is how do we create PowerPoints with embedded audio as well, which obviously works great. But this is now how we can add these little sound clips to what we've done. Right, so now I've recorded a minute almost of my sound clip. I'm going to just say save capture, or you can, again, it's got shortcut keys that you can use, and it opens up a new tab, as you can see, where it just says encoding, and the whole thing is done. Now, one thing about this, and this is the part that takes a little bit more legwork, is you now need to save this, and there's no way of saving it directly to your Google Drive. So this is first the case of save the capture, and it downloads the file. When we hit save capture, right, it's just going to go save. I'm just going to click save. You can give it a name, obviously, whatever you want to call it. And it just goes, and I hope this part displays as well. Here in the bottom, you'll see my downloads that I've made. Now, What I do on Google Drive, I've got a different folder, but this is just now an example folder called Audio Notes. So I'm going to get to how we use this in a practical sense a little bit later as well. So all that we do now I've recorded my audio note, and I click and drag and I dump it on Google Drive. So here we go, it's uploading, and there it is, the audio clip that I've recorded, right? So now all that I need to do, again, right click, and I can just say, oh, sorry, I don't need to right click on this. There it is. Now, the one thing with this, just to give you a tip when you're going to use this type of tool, there are other ones that you can use as well. This is just one I found is quite straightforward and easy to use. Just keep in mind that you will need to have your, whatever folder you're going to do it in, you'll have to just make sure that the folder itself is shared as well. Because what essentially happens is you're adding a folder from Google Drive. So the easiest is just to create a folder, go to that folder, and make sure that you share the entire folder. By default, just anyone on the internet with this link can view. That's all you need. And then we're going to add it like that. Now in Google Slides again, if we're going to open it like that, we just say Insert Audio, and it'll find all the different audio clips that you've got, and we'll just select that audio clip. It says Creating Audio, and there we go. There it is in the corner. Now you can set it to start playing automatically if you wanted to, or you can just say on click, and then you've got this option to loop the audio, stop on slide change. So theoretically, what you could do is you can record a voice clip of the entire presentation, which you then just put in the first slide, and you set it to playing automatically, and you untick the stop on slide change, and you can also say hide icon when presenting, and then your whole thing presents with an audio clip inserted. In this way, you can add music to your slideshow, etc., etc. This is a new thing that they've added onto Google Slides, which wasn't there for a while. If you are used to audio recording, what I can also tell you, what also works quite well, is to just open up your slide presentation and just open up a different audio recording tool. You can quite literally just use something like the built-in voice recorder on Windows to record your different audio clips. The key thing to remember is when you're done with that, upload it to Drive and insert it into your slide. Now, part of this, they've added the ability, you can actually recolor it if you want to make sure it fits into your theme, and then just the normal formatting tools are all part of this, so you can add a drop shadow just to add a little bit more to it. And then right, it might have had, I think the issue that it has at the moment with the playback is because it didn't have access to my microphone while Google Meet is essentially monopolizing my microphone. So it didn't pick up my audio now, but you understand the basic principle behind it. Right, so that is how we add an audio clip to our presentation. Different ways that you can use it. You can insert it at the beginning. So if I had a long audio clip that I wanted to insert, here right at the start, I can also insert one here, and there's an audio clip that plays in the background through the entire thing. If you want to add music, or if you wanted to add something like that, or again, add a narrated thing where the whole thing has its own cues, and they can essentially sit back and listen to it as if it is a video. That is also obviously a possibility to do with this, but I quite like the fact that if I'm presenting it, it's over there. As a learner, I can now click on the audio clip, and it'll start playing in the background. It'll explain something to me that I might not understand yet. Right, so that is how we add an audio clip. I'm just going to leave you again. The next thing I want to show you quickly is how we insert a video. And this is very, very straightforward if you want to add a video. Again, one of the useful things about the video is it's not part of the slide. It's not embedded in the slide. So you can send it to learners, and they can choose, do they have the kind of data connectivity to access a video, or do they not have it? So insert video, you can either go and search on YouTube. So if we're going to search for Shakespeare, we will invariably find something on Shakespeare. We can go by URL. So if you've already got a, if you have go onto YouTube and search YouTube and find a YouTube video that you think is going to work, you simply copy that link and you paste it over here. So there's one that I can use. So now I can insert my video. You can also insert from Drive. Please note, it doesn't give you the option to upload. So if you want to insert your own video, you're going to have to insert from Google Drive. Or you're first going to have to upload it to Google Drive, and then you're going to, and then you'll be able to upload or to embed it in your Google slide. Now, one or two things to note about this. Again, if you've got a video and you want to change some of the settings on it, if you click on it, always look for this format options, because it's the same. I forgot to say about this sound clip as well. If I click on that and I want to edit it, if I click on format options, it gives me the different tools that I can add here. The audio playback specifically is what we're looking for, and then the size and rotation and things like that. Now with a YouTube video, same story, click on it, gives me video playback settings. Now, what is quite useful that you can add to this is the ability to start at a certain time. So if we play this and we don't want to play this entire introduction, we're not interested in all of that, then then we can say use current time, and the video will actually start where you want it to start. And if you only want to show a short little bit at it, you can say use current time, and it actually ends where you want it to end. And there's an autoplay as well function to this. So just to show you quickly then when we present, now the video will start playing automatically, goes in 7 seconds. And I think I can't remember exactly the time that we set for the ending. Right. Obviously note that it doesn't limit it. So if you go beyond that ending point, it will continue playing. It won't actually stop the video and limit you to not showing the rest. So it's not a way of trimming a video. And again, if I wanted to show the first bit, I can still rewind to it. So you're not trimming a video. It just allows you a little bit more freedom to insert a video where you want to insert your video. Right. So, okay. With that said, the one part that is a little bit more complicated, that takes a bit longer to really get a firm grasp on, is the audio recording part of things, adding audio clips to it. The video part is quite straightforward. So I hope you're all back with me with the presentation. We're moving to the next slide, slide 6 now. The adding external assessment to your slide. Right. So again, when it comes to assessment, right, Jenica, yes, let me just quickly give you the link to the attendance register so that you can complete those. Those of you who missed the attendance register, please make sure that you do sign it. Right. So when it comes to the external assessments that we want to be able to do on our slide. Now, remember, there are two sides to this that we spoke about when we spoke about the designing our slide. The one hand of this, on the one hand that we want to look at is the ability to do it as a self-navigational tool. So in that sense, you just need to add a link. So adding a link to something is quite straightforward. I'm going to show you how we can add those links. So to add a link that they can click on, simple as that. Now, the adding a link that they can click on is really a case of if you want to have text. Let's say we've got this add a link for some digital assessment. I can select that, I right click, and I just say link, and it creates a link. Now, again, if they're going to open it on their device, they can click on this link, which is very easy and very straightforward to use. So what I've got here, I just need to quickly find it. I think I saved it somewhere. Yes, over there. Right. So when we're talking about an external link, we're talking about something like a using a Quizlet or a Quizzes or a formative or a Google form or anything like that. So any assessment, tool that you use. And again, I think it's a good idea to try and find some kind of continuity. Yes, so Stefan, I see you're struggling with the recording. I'm pretty sure that's why I'm also not getting the sound with a audio capture interface. I forgot to test it before to see if it works in a Meet session. So I think that's probably what's happening. That's why mine was also just blank in terms of that, because Google Meet kind of steals the audio for this session, right? So or in Chrome at least. So it's something you can try to do quickly afterwards. Now, adding a link, as I said, you can highlight text. You can just simply do it like that. What you can also do, of course, what's always nice to do is to use or I quite like using an icon that you add an image for a quiz. So let's say we're going to add this one, and we're just going to call it quiz. And it gives me a whole bunch of different quiz icons that I can use, whichever one I like to use. So let's just be lazy and use the very first one that they see over there, insert. So if it's something that you do all the time, learners will get used to the fact that if they see this, it's a clickable thing that they can go on, and it'll become a link. I quite generally like to have some kind of text there as well. So I will probably change this and call it quiz, and then just make sure that I've given this thing the link that I wanted to have. And then if you want to apply a link to an image, if you click on it, you'll see there's a little icon over there at the top next to the comment icon that says insert link. I always just use the shortcut Control-K, and it brings up the link function. Right, so then we insert that link. So very simply, again, we're not going to look at how we make a quizzes, how we make a Quizlet or a formative or a Google quiz. There's lots of options out there. This is just something you need to be mindful of, that you are able to add it. And then, of course, you can add a QR code as well if we're going to use, let's just quickly generate a QR code for our quiz that we want to use. So over here, again, if you're not sure how QR codes work, we have a course on that as well. Please go refer to our page, our TPD page, and you'll see there was a session that we did on these things. Right, so there's my QR code. Let me just quickly grab my QR code so I can insert it. Okay, I know I'm moving quite quickly with this, but we're not really focusing on how to create QR codes and how to do these things. Right, so it's simple as that. Depending on what you want, you can either use a QR code, because now it becomes useful in a classroom environment, because it's easy for learners to take out a mobile device, scan the QR code, and then they go straight into the assessment that you want them to go into, whatever link that you want them to go access. Or if it's a self-directed thing and they are doing it on their own, it's usually better to use a link specifically. I know in our ease of access session that we had, I said specifically with QR codes, be mindful of the fact that if you're going to send a QR code to someone on a mobile device, they can't scan it unless they take out another mobile device to scan that mobile device, and that makes no sense. So then in that instance, rather make a link, or if you want, you can obviously have your QR code there and make the QR code itself, transform that into a link. And then we'll just paste that and say, right, so that is my QR code. You can click on the QR code and it'll take you to that link. So any of these now is a way to make to create links within your thing, within your presentation. Right, so I've got a text link, I've got a little icon that I transformed into being a link, and I've got my QR code. And if it's going to be presented, if a learner opens this and they go to this point, you'll see all three of these are clickable. They're going to click on the QR code if they want to, and it'll take them to the quizzes assessment in this instance that I've created. So the idea behind that, again, is that they're able to now, when they get to page 6, they've had page 1, page 2, page 3 of content that they've covered. They've had a voice note that they could listen to. They've had a video that they could watch. They've obviously had things that they could read. You can add external links in here as well. If you wanted to, for example, make one of these a link to an external reference, they can click on that and go to another website and go find more information on that. And then it's very important that you have some kind of feedback in this. Now, what's quite nice about using something like a quizzes is they also get to see whether or not they understood. So they'll get results back. The same with a lot of people use Google Forms, of course. Google Forms is a great tool in itself. So you can use a Google Form, set up a Google Form with a number of multiple choice questions, and they will then see, did they get it right, did they get it wrong? Remember, Google Forms, again, has a great added value that you've got the feedback option as well. So if they get it wrong, it tells them why they got it wrong. So this is all about, remember what we said, what we're looking at today is the upper level of implementing digital technologies in our classroom. So when we get to this point, this is when we're going to start putting everything together into presenting our one package that our learners can use to learn what they need to learn. Right, so now that we've built our whole slide, now we need to start creating the self-navigational element to this, because this whole thing has been built. So now they need to be able to actually navigate through this. Now, how do we add our self-navigational elements to it? So for this, we're going to go all the way back to the index, right? Over here, we've got the index. Now we've got our text over here, and that'll take us to the different parts of where we need to go to. So just in terms of creating a text navigational side of it, this is pretty straightforward. We simply select item 1, and we right-click, and we say link. Now, you'll see the default thing that it does, and this is actually quite a useful little thing. Just to show you, I just want to show you this part of this as well. So let's say we're going to have Shakespeare over here. If I want to create a quick link to Shakespeare, something about Shakespeare, if I highlight the text, I right-click and I say link, what it does is it runs a quick Google search and finds the first link that I can use. I can also use the find more option, and it goes into this explore part on the side and gives me a number of different links that I could use for Shakespeare, and of course images in Google Drive, etc. So if you haven't used that part, the explore tool yet, it's a very nifty little tool that you can use. But for what we want to do, we want to just simply create our index, right-click, link, and then you'll see when it says slides in this presentation. If we click on this drop-down, it gives me all the different slides I've got in my presentation. Now, just a tip, when it gets to the names of these things, the names appear here on the slides because I use the template that has a title as part of that template. Then it automatically names the slide to that. If someone knows of a different way, if you've got a blank slide to add the name to it, I'd be very happy to know about it. But from what I've found so far, once the slide has gotten its name or has a title thing, you can't just automatically rename it. So if you're going to add a blank slide, you can't just add a name to the slide. So you'll just have to count which slide it is. It'll always tell you which slide it is. So in this instance, we're just going to link to page 1, apply that. Item 2, right-click, link. We want to link to page 2, apply. Item 3, right-click, link, and apply to page 3, apply. Go to assessment, right-click, link. And then we slides in this presentation, and we go to add external assessment, apply. Right, so there I've got the links for my index. I've added these links to my index. The reason why I often say build your thing first and then add the links, because it's actually easier once you are linking everything to just add links once the whole thing has been built. You can, of course, go and add page 1, go to the index, link page 1. Add page 2, go to the index, link page 2. The next step, however, is a lot easier once you've finished building the whole thing. So What I want to do here with the navigational icons, here I've got flat icon open. So I'm just going to search for an icon called next. And it'll give you a very, very long list of, there's a ton of different icons you can, now it's gone. Right, sometimes just a little hint about what I've seen with flat icon. Sometimes when it's not, sometimes we just need to close it and reload it again, just so they can load its entire database in, because it's actually got a lot more images than just this, but it's fine. This one, let's say we like this little blue arrow. This works for me. It seems to fit our presentation. Now we just click on that and we say, while it's loading, right, I'm not sure why flat icon decided to take that long. Okay, so now we can just insert this. Remember, if I scroll down, it'll automatically give me a few other links that I could use if I wanted to use some of these other links. So you can use the next one, you can use the back one, you can use the home icon, you can use any of these icons that are in the same style. I'm going to show you what I usually do. This is often the easiest way of doing it. We're going to say insert, and once I've got my one icon, I'm just going to resize it to a size that I feel works well. So there we've got our next icon. Right, so once I've got my next icon, rather than having to go and create more icons, I can just simply copy this one, move it here over here to the back, and then when we get to format, sorry, not format, to arrange. When you click on arrange, rotate, we're just going to flip it horizontally, and then we've got our back icon. And then if you want to, you can find a different icon, or what I think works quite nicely is just take the arrow and turn it into an up arrow by doing that. Right, now I suggest using this kind of navigational icons, making this little block part of your index, so that when they open up the index, they see what the navigational icons look like. The next step now is to actually turn them into links. Now you can either turn them into links over here, or you can move them into a position that makes sense. So let's just quickly move them into a position that makes sense. So we're going to just move this back icon over here, and we're going to move the next icon over here, and we'll move our index icon. We can just move over there. So there I've got my 3 navigational icons. The next step is now to actually add navigational tools to them by adding a link to them. Remember, all of them, we can just click on them, click on the insert link, slides in this presentation. Now the key thing is, you don't want to now select a certain slide, because now we are working on our next button. So you can see over there, this is the next button. So all I actually want to do is I want to select the next slide option. Right, there we've added to the next slide, and we select the next one, and now we're going to go to the previous slide, and this up button, we're going to say, which slide does this one need to go to? It needs to go to the index one. Now this seems like it's going to be a very, very long task to do this for your entire presentation, and that's why you build your whole presentation first and then do this at the end. Because once I've got these tools in place, my navigational tools, now I can just select all of them, I can copy them, and I literally just go to the next slide, and I paste, and I paste, and I paste, and I paste. And then obviously, if I want to, I can go over here, and I can just move that to another place. Obviously, there's no next icon, so I'll just delete the next icon. And the same here with the top one, I can just delete my back icon because I'm not going to use the back icon there. And now all of them are automatically have their links built into them. So you don't need to now go and add navigational tools to each individual slide, because that's going to take forever. So you do it once, and then you just copy and paste and copy and paste. And also take note of the fact that if we're going to take this icon, for example, and we make it and we change it to that size and we rotate it like this, if I copy it and I go to the next slide, it will paste in exactly the same place that I did it in that slide. So that's why move them into a sensible spot, and then you just go copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste, and it just adds it to your entire presentation. Now, if you want to, the next trick that I'm going to show you is entirely unnecessary. But if you want to, you can do this as well. Google Slides does not have the option to turn off automatic navigation. So by default, it is turned on. What that means is if I present, I've got my lovely little arrows here that will move me back and forward. But if I click anywhere else, it's going to move me to the next slide anyway. Right? It's what it does by default. This is the default setting, and there is no way to switch that setting off, which in a way I think is not really a problem. However, there is a solution to get around it. But I think what I'll do now, what I'll do for the solution, I'm not going to actually show you how to do the solution. I'll explain how the solution works. And if it's something that you find is very important for you to be able to do, then you can go. And I'll add a link in the email that we'll send that'll explain how you do that, because it takes a while to really get around explaining it. But essentially, bottom line, how it works is you need to create a sorry, lost you there for a second. You need to create a block. Where's the image? I'm going to show this very quickly. Shapes. You need to create an image, a block that is the size of your entire thing. You need to make sure that it is filled with a transparency. We'll remove that as well. So now essentially what happens is I've got a block that is layered over everything else. And that block, we're going to give a link. The link is going to be to this presentation. So we're going to add this link. The link will be the presentation itself. And all we need to do now is make sure that we essentially need to make sure that our icons are moved to the top, the navigational icons, and that this block is not the only thing that is in the way. So I'll just need to move this one back and move it not to the back, but anyway. So I'm not going to go through the whole process of doing that. I'll send a video of how one does that. But you basically make a blank transparent block, draw it over everything, and just make sure that your icons that are supposed to be navigational icons are on top of that block. So what that means is the link will not work, or not, it's not going to work if they click anywhere else. But my personal view is it's a lot of unnecessary hassle, because if you're going to have a self-directed navigational tool, then they might as well direct themselves anywhere that they need to go. They just